Good morning. I'm Sarah Wyant. I'm the founder and publisher of Agri-Pulse, and I'm so glad to have so many of you join us today for our discussion on building domestic demand for U.S. soy. And what a timely topic. Soybeans, as you know, have been in the headlines a lot lately, and so we're delighted to have a discussion about this topic today. Thank you to the United Soybean Board for sponsoring today's webinar. We're going to hear from several distinguished speakers today, and you can find more about them and their full biographies on our website. We also want to hear from you, and so if you have any questions, please offer your questions in the Q&A portion, not the chat box. And if you have any technical questions, please put those in the Q&A portions as well. During today's discussion, we're going to focus on several ways in which the soy checkoff is working to build and invest in new domestic markets. Let's start by hearing from the farmers who are leading the United Soybean Board. We're joined today by Philip Good, United Soybean Board Chairman and Mississippi soybean farmer, and Brent Gatton, USB Vice Chair, and also a Kentucky soybean farmer. So Philip, let's start off with you and tell us a little bit about how your harvest's been going and some of what you see as the current challenges and opportunities facing your industry.
Well, thank you. It's great to be with all of you today. I can tell you a little bit about what's happening in Mississippi. Macon, Mississippi is where I farm with my family. Very briefly, 24 was a very challenging year for us because we experienced a drought here in the Mid-South, and so that's kind of the basis of rolling into this crop year. And with this crop year, started planting. I remember it very, very clearly. Had a great planting time all the way up onto the Saturday night before Easter. Got off the planter around 11:15 p.m., went into the house, and that's when the rain started. So we experienced an extremely wet period of time in the spring where it rained for on some of the farms every day for a little over 60 days. And on another farm, it rained every day for over 70 days. Some days were only a tenth of an inch of rain. I remember one Sunday morning we had 6 inches in 4 hours on a Sunday morning. So we were able to keep that population and stand for the most part because we burned through so much of the calendar, and so we were able to keep that stand and live with it. Um, just wrapped up harvest here. We had a average growing season, an outstanding fall because it was dry, and so we were able to get the crops out very timely. But as I look at the combine records and the yield data, I it's not been synced with the actual tickets yet, but we're going to be off probably 20 to 30% this year on our yields, and that's basically because of population and stand issues from the rain after planting. So we knew this year was going to be tight, profit margin wise. We just didn't expect that being off 20 to 30% from our 5-year average. So that's kind of it's where we're sitting right now, and it's been a challenge. Weather-wise, challenge early on. Of course, marketing is always a challenge, but I think one of the biggest challenges that we're facing here on the farm, and it's all the farmers are facing higher input costs, and that would be in the seed realm, fertilizer, equipment costs. So yeah, it's tight. It's been a very tight year, and yeah, we're in tight profit margins.
Yeah. And certainly the markets have not been very favorable, although I know all of you woke up with a little better attitude this morning, given the news overnight about what's the agreement that has been reached with China. So that should help a little bit of upside, perhaps. So as we look ahead, can you share a little bit about just how the soy checkoff is working to really get the strategy right, looking 5 to 10 years out, even though you as a farmer have to go year to year and season to season. But tell us a little bit about your planning opportunities with the soy checkoff.
Sure. First of all, it is very exciting to hear soybeans in the national news last night multiple times. I'm passionate about the soybean industry. I have the opportunity and the honor this year of serving as the chair of the United Soybean Board, along with my fellow farmer directors from across this nation. And so all of them are also passionate about the soy industry, about their farms, of course, the profitability there for themselves, the next generation, and maybe even their grandchildren. And so at the U.S., at the United soybean board, we're very interested in providing volume, sales for soybeans, value for the soybean producers. We're looking at both the supply side and the demand side. And so things that we're interested on the supply side are, challenges there about diseases. Soybean cyst nematode is one of the major yield robbers for soybeans across the entire nation. And then on the demand side, we're looking at markets, and that can be everything from domestic to exports. And so we're looking at both sides. But the United Soybean Board, along with those checkoff investments, are all about creating value for the soybean farmers. We're looking at everything from food, fuel, industrial, exports, sustainable production, every one of those areas. And one of the things that we're right now in the process of doing at the board between now and our December board meeting is we are doing a strategic update. And so with that strategic update, the farmer committees are working on looking at where do we want to go with investments? Where do we see the greatest return in the next 5 to 10 years? And so that's going to be expanded and looked at even a little more deeply when it comes to things like fuel and different things in that realm. So I think we've got a lot of opportunity. We need to capture that in the form of return on investment for every farmer who's investing in the soy checkoff.
Thank you. I know you're investing in a lot of different areas and the research that's going on constantly. If you could highlight maybe one or two investments that you think really have made a big impact for your industry, what would those be?
Oh, there's some really big ones, especially in the export side. Have had the opportunities, on the demand side to visit multiple nations on some trade missions, when it be Korea, Japan, the Americas, and I think about the importance of U.S. soy in their diets, whether it be in human consumption or in the animal production side for poultry and different things in those countries. Seeing the importance of the U.S. soy label and brand, the sustainability portion there. On the supply side, I think one that comes to my mind right now is one that we are looking at. I mentioned the soybean cyst nematode, which is a major yield robber across the nation. But another one that's kind of come to just highlight, it's one of the most recent ones, would be red crown rot. We've heard some discussion and some problems in parts of the Midwest and northern Midwest. And so, we're looking at everything from what's current to some old things that we can improve upon. And so, yeah, it's not an extremely big one on the red crown rot, but that's something that's very immediate and prevalent right now in certain parts of the northern Midwest that we're looking at as well.
Yeah, it's very important. So Brent, let's turn to you for a little bit here. And in your neck of the woods in Kentucky, tell us a little bit about what you experienced for your harvest season.
Yes, well, thank you. Well, good morning. Yes, I'm Brent Gatton from Western Kentucky. I farm about an hour south of Evansville, Indiana. This has been one of the most extreme weather events I can remember in the years that I've been farming. We started out, we got really rolling in March. Our first plant date for corn and soybeans is mid-April, corn's April the 1st. So we got a lot of field work, spraying, fertilized, things like that done in March. And then the rains opened up. So we had so much rain this year that we were probably the second to, I think it was the 36 or 30, I think it was either 1936 or the 32 flood in Calhoun, Kentucky. This was the second highest water levels that this area has ever seen since then. So we had fields underwater till about toward the end of May, where we could get back in there and start finally getting the corn crop put in and things like that. So, but then it always says it always comes one direction and goes total opposite the other direction. Once the rain did shut off, I don't think we had any measurable rain since the first of July. So our crops we're pretty similar to Philip. We're off probably 30 to 35% on corn and soybeans. It is pretty localized. You'll see a lot of portions of Kentucky that was in a pretty severe drought, as well as southern Indiana, Illinois, and a lot of individuals that I know in Tennessee as well. So it's definitely been one of challenging. We finished up harvest last week. Field conditions have been great. I think we only had probably one rain event during the whole time of harvest. So that did go smoothly, but we kind of, joke, but not a joke. It doesn't take very long. We don't have a whole lot to haul. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
That's always so tough when you hear about the extreme weather events that both of you have been facing this year. Let's turn over to USB a little bit, and Brent, talk about just the work groups and how you are working to move some of these investments forwards. I know that you've got different priorities that you've established and probably a little tightening of the belt this year, given how prices have evolved.
Yes. Well, my role as vice chair this year is I oversee the value alignment committee. So that's made up of our priority areas and our work group leads. So how the structure of United Soybean works is we have two action teams, a supply team and a demand team. And then we have different work groups that fit underneath of those teams. So we have health and nutrition supply, we have innovation technology supply, and infrastructure connectivity is one group that kind of serves both supply and demand. And then we have health and nutrition demand and innovation technology demand. And then we created off of a SPA, a new strategic plan refresh last year was presented to the board to create an export committee. So we actually have 6 different at-large farmers that serve as these work group leads that oversee that body of work. And this year, as my role on the value alignment committee is that we're in charge after the treasurer sets the budget, they present that to the executive committee, and then the executive committee approves that and it goes to the value alignment committee. And so what we do, they authorize the amount of dollars that we have to invest in different priorities across all these different work groups. So for an example, in FY25, we had about $121 million that we could invest in checkoff dollars on initiatives. This year, we were down $46 million of what we could invest in for FY26. We had a total of $75 million. So when we got together as a group, and it truly is, it is something to really be proud of and to be a part of, because we have 77 members that serve on this board that serve in these different committees. And so when our group got together and we got to discussing of what would be the biggest return on investment because of the farm economy and what's taking place on the family farms. So we wanted to invest more into demand driving initiatives. So that would be in a lot of export works and things like that would help make a difference, move the pile, educate our consumers and our potential end user about the difference between U.S. soy events against our southern competitors.
That's a big budget change that you had to deal with there, quite the swing, and I know those decisions are never easy. I'd like to just ask you the same question I asked Philip, and if there's one or two investments that you could highlight that you think really were big impact things for you, what would you say those are?
You know, it's amazing being on the board. I'm starting my 8th year. And I wanted to add that this is the first year that I can remember we had a budget approval of 100% plus all of our work that was funded through these work groups. And, you know, when you look at it and what the biggest value is, it's hard to pinpoint. But some of my favorites is like, you know, soy foam has become extremely big. A lot of the industrial uses that people wouldn't think that soybeans could be a part of. Goodyear tires, Skechers tennis shoes, synthetic turf like Sinlon, things like that is not a big market mover, but it's another way for us to get into these markets and actually be able to tell our sustainable story of how soybeans do touch every life every day. And then I like to think about the infrastructure studies that we were able to be a part of. We were able to help increase exports coming out of the PMW from studies that we were able to invest in to be able to show the value of being able to get into those markets and how that helped our northern farmers to be able to have a different avenue besides always coming down from the Gulf. So it was helping on their basis levels. So it's helping on return on investment for those individuals through the shipping industry.
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of challenges with infrastructure, not only the fact that we need new pathways, but the lower water levels this fall in the Mississippi and things like that make it more challenging as well. Just as we think about the news overnight that there has been a deal cut with China. They'll be back at the market buying soybeans this year and next. Those are, obviously makes everybody feel a lot better and the markets are reacting, but there's still a lot going on outside of China. And Philip, can you talk a little bit just about how the current situation with soy exports around the globe?
Sure. Yes, it was very exciting news last night. China is a very important customer to U.S. soy farmers. But in addition to that, I would say, diversification is also important, whether it be on our farms or for the soybean board as well. And when it comes to our customers, domestically, we know the importance of poultry. We know the importance of swine. We know the importance of inclusion rates. But when it comes to our export partners, they're also important. And we have been working we have partners that we work with when it comes to the United States Soybean Export Council, and also WISH, World Initiative for Soy and Human Health, and ASA. working with them to expand and develop new markets. I'm excited to see growth in the realm of markets outside of China. This past year of a little over 30% growth in exports outside, excluding China. To me, that's very important when it comes to diversification for the future. I think that, we appreciate every customer. We are excited about every market. For us, it's about finding new markets and developing those and expanding those markets. And so we saw that happen this year. We're looking forward to next year. I believe next year is going to be much better.
Mhm. And what are you, Brent, what are you hearing from the farmers that are in your neighborhood in terms of their concerns about the current farm economy? I know we've had different barometers where farmers have had these kind of swings of thinking that things were going to be going better and then going to see some of these large markets disappear. Overall, do you think that your neighbors are looking at this year as one that they'd like to get past and into 26, or what's kind of the mood out there?
Yes, ma'am. I'll be honest. There's been a lot of on-farm storage that has been added in our area, and that has extremely paid off this year because we've gained probably $1.30, $1.40 in price increase just in the last couple of weeks. Really, as a farmer, you've got to be optimistic. You've always, sometimes it's hard for us to always be happy. We're always it's either too dry or too wet or something like that. One of the main concerns, is what it costs to put the crop out now versus what it used to cost just 10 years ago or 5 years ago, with the increase of input prices and seed and things like that. But that's what I think is so neat about the founding fathers of this organization that got this implemented back in 1991. Could you imagine where we would be at today, technology-wise, input-wise, production-wise, without the checkoff being there to be able to work on behalf of farmers? Because we like to, it's hard to really imagine. We have a great team that's based there in Chesterfield, Missouri, but at the end of the day, we also have thousands working on behalf of American soybean farmers all across the world just because of these other entities that Philip just mentioned that work that we invest in. So I'd like to think we're all optimistic. The farmers that I surround myself with here locally, I mean, we're all pretty excited about the news that's coming out. And in all honesty, you look at the population of the world and what's going to take to feed this world. And I think American farmers produce the safest food supply in the world. So I'm pretty optimistic about it. And I'm excited about the future for the future generations that come behind us.
Good to hear. I know we talked a lot about what's happening on the export side, but there's also a lot of new demand opportunities that you've been involved with, whether it's high oleic and food and dairy, including more soy and pig diets. Philip, can you talk a little bit about some of those things that you're doing just on the feed side?
Well, where I'm at in the Mid-South and across our nation, poultry is such a big consumer of soy meal. And so, I'm just, we see expansion happening in my part of the world. There's a lot more within just a couple miles of my property. There's, I believe, 25 new chicken barns going in. So we're glad and appreciative of our poultry customers working with our partners, USAPEC, U.S. Poultry and Egg Export Council, and what they're doing. Poultry is extremely important. Also, the inclusion rate in swine diets. We know how the value that is in the U.S. soybean, and so when it comes to everything from the amino acids to that total profile, we're producing a quality product. And we're glad to educate and share that information with our customers. And so therefore, I think many of them are starting to realize that they don't have to add the synthetic amino acid profile that they did in the past when they use U.S. Soy meal. When it comes to domestic and to our foreign partners, the importance is making sure they know what that profile is looking like, the value of the U.S. soybean, and the sustainable story that is behind the U.S. soybean.
Yeah, let's talk about the sustainability a little bit. Obviously, that's been a topic that has been raised by a lot of our foreign customers. Either one of you want to talk about how you're able to not only produce more sustainably these days, but make sure that it's verified so that customers can trust that there is a product that has been grown sustainably in the U.S.
Well, I'll just jump in there and right now and say that, I've always, my father has always said that everything goes back to the soil, and the soil is like your checkbook, so to speak, where you have to make more deposits than withdrawals. And so for me, it all goes to the soil, and sustainability has been a passion of mine. But I didn't really know what the customers felt about that. And the opportunity of visiting, even in Japan and Korea, had the opportunity to sit down across the boardroom and in the feed mills and hear how important it is to our customers across the ocean in those different countries. And so for me to actually hear that, bringing that story back home, it was important to me, but to hear it's important to them, that is something that I'm proud of what we do. I'm able to tell them in great detail what I actually do on my own farm. When it comes to capturing runoff water and putting it into reservoirs and all these different things, from the soil moisture probes, all the technical advances, using less chemical, all that is something that I want to tell them, and it's passionate to me, but they're asking questions. They wanted to hear it, and it's important to our customers as well. So I think it's important that we know what we're doing and that we're able to share that with our customers.
Brian, I'll turn that to you too, in terms of, can you just share some of the sustainability stories you have on your own farm?
Yes, ma'am. I tell you, here in the last few years, and it was always known years ago, you used to have a lot of clay type tile. Now you've got more into the plastic perforated pipe that is actually in the field. And a lot of these in our part of the world, we're pretty wet most springs, and it has really increased your yields by 30 to 40% by having the proper drainage. And it also slows down, your nutrient uptakes and things like that for the roots to go deeper to be able to get to those nutrients. When I look at our sustainable practices, what I think is very neat is that, it's pretty well known that in the United States, we're losing production agricultural ground every day going to urban development. And we're able to produce more products now with less acres than we ever had. And it's really based on the technology that has either been funded through USB or other entities to be able to show us how we can produce more with less. So on our farm, we use everything that we have is all kind of connected together in that technology. I couldn't imagine, used to, nobody ever thought all these electronics and things would go very well in the dust and the dirt and things like that. But I tell you, if it doesn't work, we shut down until we get it fixed, because we truly believe into it, because it is a cost savings where you don't have overlap on seed planting. You don't have overlap on different fertilizer applications and things like that. So it truly is a cost savings, and it is a money maker because it is a return on investment for farmers to be able to produce more with less inputs.
Perfect. Yeah, I don't think most consumers would recognize all the high-tech equipment that you deal with these days. It's more like being in a computer lab than on a tractor of days of old. Just one other thing I want to touch with, Philip, with you is there's some exciting new things that are potentially demand drivers in the maritime industry. We've got a company like Maersk, one of the big ocean shipping companies, talking about dual fuels and being able to incorporate perhaps more renewable diesel. What can you share with us about perhaps biofuels moving forward?
Oh, I think it's the greatest opportunity yet. I'm excited. I think that we have only scratched the surface. I think the volume usage there, when it comes to whether it be the maritime, whether it comes to that, or on the locomotive, on the class engines there, we've got a great market, and we've got a great product, sustainable. And so I think the sky is focus a group that's just going to be looking at that in the future of saying, how can we just build and meet that demand that is definitely, and see what's about to happen and come.
Yeah, it sounds like that even without some of the decisions that were going to be made by the International Maritime Association, that some of the private industries are moving in this direction as well. So this will be exciting to watch. Well, I'd like you to both stay online with us here, and we're going to bring in some of your experts from your staff and have them give us some updates on each of these respective areas. So we're going to start with Keenan McRoberts, who's the United Soybean Board Executive Vice President of Strategy, John Jansen, United Soybean Board Senior Vice President of Market Development, and Brian Pierce, United Soybean Board Senior Vice President for Strategy, Operations, and Industrial Innovation. So let's get an update first from Keenan. We'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah, and good morning, everyone. Keenan with United Soybean Board. I lead our strategy team. It's really the team of subject matter experts here in St. Louis that are doing everything we can to build demand both domestically and in collaboration with our export partners around the world to increase value for soybean farmers and create a win-win with the industry. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the animal ag industry and everything that U.S. soy is doing to support our animal ag partners. If you think about how soy is used in animal rations, it is the largest single volume opportunity. And it's one of the ways in which we strategically move the pile, if you will, to use a commonly used term. There's been a lot of buzz around biofuels, as Philip just touched on, some industry expansion, some structural change in the soy industry here domestically, based on expanding demand for renewable diesel. With that comes additional soybean meal. And the number one way in which we create demand for that soybean meal is through animal agriculture applications, both domestically and overseas, specifically poultry, swine, dairy, and beef. I think a lot of people forget oil is only 20% of the bean. A lot of the change has been driven by that 20%. The other 80% is meal, the protein, the carbohydrates, and all the value that brings to the animal ag industry around the globe. So this is one of our core priorities as an organization. And we've really been focused on strategic deployment of soy products to create additional profit opportunities in animal agriculture. The ways in which we do that is through increased strategic use to increase inclusion rates, but in a way that creates additional profit opportunities for our partners that can be a win-win with the industry. One example of that, the U.S. Soy Center for Animal Nutrition and Health was just launched. This is a new comprehensive resource designed to support our animal ag partners. If you're interested in checking that out, the URL is can.ussoy.org or can.ussoy.org. This site was developed by the United Soybean Board to serve as a central go-to resource for nutritionists, veterinarians, animal scientists, and producers who feed U.S. soy in their diets. It offers species-specific value propositions and opportunities across poultry, swine, dairy, beef, and other species, including things like diet formulation tools, decision-making tools, podcasts and webinars, sustainability tools, and more. As the largest consumers of soy products, both in the US and globally, this is one of the key ways in which we support farmers by creating increased demand, but also create relevance for the industry and commercial value propositions that support profit outcomes for our animal agriculture partners, both in the US and overseas. So that's a key part of where we're focused. On US soy can, I'll dive into a couple different things. Specific for swine, there's a few value propositions for swine that we're focused on. One is increased production efficiency with strategic deployment of soy as an intact protein. Really strategic deployment of soy for to improve performance under stress. So if we talk about resilience, how are animals performing under heat stress and under respiratory disease stress? Emerging evidence and a lot of the research that's been led by the Soy Checkoff through the years suggests that by using soy effectively, by using soybean meal effectively, animals can come to market at a little higher weight, creating potentially increased profit opportunities on the swine side in particular. Then the third one I want to highlight with swine is the energy value of soy based on emerging research is higher than what we thought previously. And this is across species. There's a lot of additional value and relevance to the industry as commercial partners think about reformulating the way in which they quantify soybean meal energy and bringing additional value into those applications by reconsidering the energy value of soy. And we're generating the research to ensure that that's done the right way, as well as the resources for commercial partners to adapt to meet their needs as it relates to formulation approach. Shifting gears to dairy, there's been a lot of buzz around high lake soybeans in dairy. This is one of the most exciting emerging ingredients that we've seen in a long time across species. And a lot of the buzz is based on the potential to increase milk fat yield and reduce diet costs without compromising performance on the milk production side. This is a really unique opportunity because it really does create a win-win opportunity for US soybean farmers as well as the dairy industry. The dairy industry can potentially make more money by using this the right way, and soybean farmers can produce a premium product to feed into those dairy rations, really tightening that connection between end users and farmers in a way we haven't seen before, because we're feeding whole roasted soybeans, which don't require traditional processing to come to market. So there's a lot of good information about high lake soybeans for the dairy industry on can.ussoy.org. You'll find a frequently asked questions document that gets into high lake soy production, processing for dairy applications, as well as the nutritional value and how to use the ingredients effectively, whether it's whole roasted soybeans or expel or extruded meal in those rations. That gives a sense for how exciting this is. We're doing everything we can do to make sure this is done the right way, that it can be sustained long-term growth that exceeds potentially a million new acres of demand and gets into that million metric tons of additional product that's moving. So a lot of good stuff there. We're very committed to our animal ag partners. This is one of our absolute top priorities as the United Soybean Board. That will never change, and we're doing it more intentionally than we ever have before. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks, Keenan. That is a great overview. And a lot of folks don't recognize that not only have our farmers been producing more sustainably and being more productive than ever before, but in animal agriculture as well, the productivity has really changed dramatically. So let's turn it over to John. Take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. There have been two key words mentioned here. Philip mentioned diversification, Keenan resilience. Market development at the USB really ties into those two key words and two key activities. Capitalizing on opportunities for our farmers means building resilience into their operations, providing the capacity of that farm to recover from stresses that have already been mentioned, from drought to excess water, disease and pests, and market fluctuations, kind of where I get involved, while maintaining productivity and enhanced profitability are keys. We are really looking for opportunities where soybean farmers can diversify their operations. And that really, I'll mention two different key areas today where our farmers have invested heavily. And the first one is Farmers for Soil Health program, which is really a good example of that sustainability core soil health discussion that's already taken place. It's a partnership between the National Pork Board, National Corn Growers Association, the USB, and it focuses on expanding cover crops acres across 20 soybean producing states for both soy and corn. We're adding a no-till practice this year in addition. So the goal here is to achieve an additional 30 million acres of new cover crop practices by 2030. The program started 2 years ago and will focus on its third year here with enrollment beginning the spring of 2026. Again, 20 soy and corn producing states participating through the Advancing Markets for Producers, or AMP program, which granted this coalition $100 million to kickstart the effort here. So the funds are being used to provide in-state technical assistance for the implementation of cover crops and tillage practices, and of course, help farmers invest in those practices through providing them $35 an acre for up to 3 years to get started on cover crops and no-till. Farmers for Soil Health is a notable example of checkoff alignment from boots on the ground at the state level, support all the way through education and outreach at the national level. Secondarily, I'm going to touch on the commercialization and enhancement of soybean traits that our directors have invested in. They've invested in the value through enhanced soybean varieties with key attributes like drought resistance, enhanced oil content, enhanced protein for human consumption. These all provide premium opportunities for markets like tofu, edamame, soy milk, coffee whiteners in the food side, and snack foods. Really, the best example of this development over the years has been the hyoleic platform, which farmers began investing in around 2010 and are still evolving that opportunity currently. Hyoleic varieties provide benefits in the form of clean labels on the food side. One aspect of consumers don't want to see chemicals any longer in their food and their labels, so it allows for clean labels. The product allows for great flavor transfer. Soy is a tremendous product for letting the flavor of food come through while the fat remains kind of a bland carrier of that flavor. And lastly, on the food side, again, in the food service especially, an extended fry life for better quality food over a longer period of time. Really, the beauty of hyoleic and that hyoleic fatty acid is that it provides benefits across food, feed, and industrial applications, as you've heard. Hyoleic program, as initiated by the USB, is generating just under $4 return for farmers on every $1 invested by the checkoff. So it's been a great product for USB farmers, and one that is continuing to bring benefits. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And last but not least, Brian, we're ready to hear from you.
Thanks, Sarah, and hello, everyone. It's great to have an opportunity to talk about industrial uses, which is one of the fastest growing areas of innovation for U.S. soy. So just like Vice Chair Gatton mentioned, industrial uses, while they're a smaller slice of the total soy demand compared to feed or fuel, it's really an incredibly exciting space that has had a lot of growth. In the past decade, soy oil use in non-fuel industrial applications has grown nearly 90%, and soy meal use in industrial applications has grown by 33%. So that translates to real measurable new markets for U.S. soybeans to deliver that return on farmer investment that Chairman Good was talking about. So our approach in this space is really about building a strong, balanced research and development pipeline, taking ideas from early stage research all the way through to commercialization with major brands and proven partners. Some of our focus areas are on innovating new uses, diversifying the demand channels for both meal and oil, as has been talked about already, strengthening U.S. soy's reputation through high-profile partnerships, and making sure ideas successfully make it to market. A lot of good technologies don't quite make it all the way there without focused support and resources. So in our process, we look at market size and we target the highest impact markets that are going to move the pile, to borrow the phrase that's been said a few times, such as fuels and lubricants, asphalt, bioplastics, adhesives. It's an ever-expanding list and a really exciting area to work in. I want to use my time today just maybe to give a few examples of investments that U.S. farmers are making and prioritizing throughout that pipeline, just to give a flavor of how our work progresses. So in the early stage, we're investing in foundational research that can solve real world challenges. So one example is an exciting new project we have with Akron Rubber Development Lab that's looking at whether soy-based materials can replace 6-PPD. That's a chemical used in tires to prevent them from degrading. But that's under significant regulatory pressure because that compound can actually transform into a toxic compound when it's exposed to air and water. Getting a soy new use to solve that technical industry challenge will really open an exciting market. We're also supporting innovative adhesive research with Dr. Wilker at Purdue University. He's looking at soy oil-based adhesives with exceptional moisture resistance, which would really be a breakthrough for soy wood adhesive or soy adhesives, because one of the challenges is their moisture resistance. And that's just a really cool technology where they're studying underwater organisms and the chemistry and biology of how they can affix to surfaces. Think of like a barnacle, and translating that to real world technology. So very exciting opportunity for soy. So that's early stage. You know, mid stage is about projects that are closer to market or just reaching the market now. Brent mentioned soy foam is one of the standouts. That's a soybean meal-based firefighting foam that eliminates the use of PFAS. That's a forever chemical that's been linked to serious health issues and water contamination around military bases, airports, fire training sites, anywhere where a lot of firefighting foam is used. Traditional foams that have PFAS are under heavy scrutiny. They're even banned in some states. So there's a huge need for a safer alternative, and U.S. farmers are rising to the occasion to meet that need. Soy foam really has the full package. It performs exceptionally well. It's biodegradable. It's made from U.S. soybean meal. It's a great example of how soy can replace synthetic chemicals and protect people and the environment while helping U.S. agriculture. Another example I think Brent mentioned was Goodyear Tires. So we have a long partnership with them, but we're working to expand how much soybean oil can be used in their tire formulation, replacing petroleum products while maintaining high performance. And that investment is a really great example that it's not sustainability or performance. They can go hand in hand, and U.S. Soy can deliver both to give a better performing product that's more sustainable. So finally, at the commercial end of our pipeline, you know, one example, we're partnering with Dynamic Green Products and Stanley Black & Decker to bring soy-based lubricants into household name brand products like DeWalt, Craftsman, Mac Tools. Those are brands that farmers and consumers know, and they really help make the impact of the soy checkoff visible by tying them to everyday products. So taken all together, these efforts show how checkoff dollars are turning research into reality. We're creating new markets, we're reducing environmental impact, we're giving farmers more ways to win. And I would say the future of U.S. soy on the industrial side is really bright. We're just getting started. The potential impact that soy can have across such a diverse space is really, the sky's the limit in my eyes. So yeah, thank you, Sarah. I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, thank you. It is exciting to see the changes, given that I was around when the checkoff started and, you know, all the different uses that you have come up with since that time has really been amazing. So I see we've got a few questions that have come in, which we'll ask here in just a little bit, but just to dive a tad bit deeper on a couple of things. Keenan, I was talking to a dairy industry leader last night, and it is amazing the number of new dairy manufacturing plants that are going up in different parts. You think about the huge Chobani expansion in the Northeast and other areas where, you know, there's going to be a huge demand for dairy. And you talked about high oleic soy for dairy being one of the most exciting demand opportunities. Can you just tell us a little bit more about how you see that playing out as the dairy industry works to expand to meet this demand for really protein that's a big buzz right now in the consumer side?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Yeah, it's interesting as you think about feeding a whole high oleic roasted bean into a dairy ration. Most of what you're feeding is still protein, even though the potential butterfat or milk fat benefits come primarily from the oleic acid, which is a more rumen-friendly fat relative to the linoleic acid that comes with a typical commodity bean at a higher fraction. So it's unique because the processing element, as you talk about some of that additional processing infrastructure that's out there, it results in heat treating the bean so that you're getting more out of that bean in the rumen. That affects the way that the protein is digested even more than the oil, and we have to get that right. And there's a lot of different ways in which processing can be done to result in a high quality ingredient. But knowing what that is, testing it the right way, and then formulating against that product so that the dairy can get the most out of it and really maximize the profit opportunity on that end is critical to long-term success and a positive experience for the dairy industry. So we're spending a lot of time focused there on processing and testing and doing that the right way so this opportunity can be sustained over time to support positive outcomes both for the dairy industry as well as for soybean farmers.
Thank you. And John, when you were talking about Farmers for Soil Health, I remember a lot of excitement when this was first unveiled and a lot of interest for farmers. Cover crops aren't easy for folks. You know, sometimes they work. I know on our own, my own farm in Iowa, the first year they were flown on, and then it didn't rain for 3 weeks afterwards. And so we didn't get much of a cover crop grown. But after we switched to drilling in the cereal rye, things went much better. You're providing not only dollars, but technical assistance, as I understand it. So can you talk to us a little bit about how many growers have expressed their interest in the program, and what all they can get out of, in addition to a stipend, that what else they can expect from enrollment in the program?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that, you know, starting the Farmers for Soil Health platform, the $35 is, to your point, just the beginning point. Embedded in Farmers for Soil Health is a marketplace platform. One of the requirements of the project was that there had to be built in a system for farmers to communicate directly with end users. The USB and our directors decided to put forward a program that they had been developing here domestically with DTN Network, and that's the DTN Marketplace platform. It's embedded in Farmers for Soil Health, and it does exactly what I mentioned. It connects farmers directly with end users to provide additional value for the practices that they do on farm. It actually works both ways, however, which is really cool. So the accumulation of the Farmers for Soil Health acres can be, sold through the marketplace directly with the farmers who register for additional value. And then it works the opposite way, where an end user can come in and say, hey, I need X in a draw area, and the platform can go out and find those farmers in the area that would qualify for the needs of that end use application. So really, it's a great way for farmers to register, to know who they're selling their products to, and to get further compensated for the work that they've done.
Thanks, John. And Brian, you talked about soy foam being kind of a mid-stage product right now. Is it actually being tested in any firefighting units, or what's the timeline that we might expect to see some of that actually being used commercially?
Yeah, Sarah. Yeah, definitely late mid-stage in the way we think about it. So it's been super exciting to see how quickly soy foam has caught on. So it's already being used. Firefighters from Virginia to California have made the switch. It's being used today in firehouses because of its performance, environmental, and health benefits. I think what's really differentiated it is it works in existing equipment, and it works on both Class A and Class B fires. So that's really helped with really rapid adoption. The manufacturer who produces it, their name's Cross Plains Solutions, but they sell nationally. They're continuing to expand their local and regional distributors. We often hear the story, you know, a firehouse will test it. The firefighters love it so much, they reach out and ask, can we become distributors of this? We know lots of firefighters. So, you know, there's a huge element of word of mouth. We're also, as a side note, seeing some promising interest from the Department of Defense on that technology as well. So, you know, my opinion, word of mouth is our best ally for how to expand that. So, you know, Agri-Pulse audience or anyone listening can really help by just letting local fire departments know soy foam's available. It's a commercial product. It's high performing, it's safer and better for your communities. But yeah, it's very much, it's out there in the wild, and constant outreach about it and positive feedback is what we're seeing as it spreads. So that's been really a great project to watch.
Yeah, it's not every day that soybean farmers get to talk to a lot of firefighters on a cool new product. And that's a good segue to one of the questions that just came in, and that is, do you have some insights you can share on demand potential for that in terms of what usage might look like, or is it too early to tell?
It's a little early. We certainly have some projections. So in terms of overall volume of soy meal it's going to use, it's not as significant as the animal ag sector, as Keenan mentioned. But the reputational benefit it provides is very high, and the volume it could provide could be pretty substantial. What really the reason for the wishy-washy answer is it depends in the firefighting foam space on certifications and which markets you can go into. So you need certain certification to fight wildfires, but that's a large volume of potential product. You need certain certification to be approved by the Department of Defense to be used on military installations across the globe. So depending on how those develop, and that's why we talk about it as a mid-stage project. We're still working on a lot of those certifications. And our focus is to find the biggest market impacts where we can create more and more demand for U.S. soybean meal to help farmers diversify their end-use channels. So I don't have an exact number today, but it could be significant if we can get enough of these new markets opened up and certifications, which we're all working full steam on.
Thank you. Another question came in, and obviously Philip and Brent, you were the recipients of the changing global climate with so much rain. But the question is focused on what is the soy industry doing to prepare growers for the swings in climate and all the the changes that you're seeing with perhaps more extreme rainfall periods and things like that. So Philip, could you take that one first, and then Brent, feel free to add in.
Yeah, I think, varieties and the soybean seed now, whether it be for example, the change in my career where I used to way back at the beginning of my career think a 30 or 40 bushel per acre soybean was an outstanding yield. Being able to see yields that have changed, and now we're looking at upwards of 90, and you're hearing over 100 bushel soybeans in certain parts. They weren't on my farm this year, unfortunately. But yeah, the seed has changed so much. And so to see that drought resistance being able to be implemented in that seed, I mean, there's just so much change in that area that we've got some water resistance. I mean, for a plant to survive what it went through on my farm this year, it really does shock me that we weren't replanting 80 and 90 days later, which would have been too late in the season. Now, yes, granted, on my farm, we do ridging or hipping just in case of an unusual event, but this was extremely unusual. But I think the opportunities there in the soybean breeding and in the seed and different things which have to do with drought, water tolerance, disease resistance, all that is going into the seed. And that is just amazing what's happening there. Also discovering as far as on the importance of fungicide, disease resistant, all those things as well.
Thank you. Brent, did you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I'm 100% agreeance with Philip. That, it's amazing. I can remember the last drought event we had was in 2012. For an example, this year we've had corn ranges and from anywhere from 95 bushel an acre to 215, and we've had soybeans ranging anywhere from 20 to 65 bushel an acre. But the year of the drought, it was pretty darn even across the board. I mean, you're talking, goodness, 10 bushel or under. On soybeans, we were lucky to get 80, 90 bushel acre corn. And I do think the technology and the things that's been invested in and the research that's been done to get us these better varieties and chemistries and things like that to help us to weather these storms that we're actually involved in. And I look on the mechanical side of things too, the way these planters operate and go through the field and the technologies that's invested, we can get it, like Philip said, we're getting a stand on ground now that there's no way that would have been possible without the technology that's even been placed in some of this planting machinery that we have nowadays. So
thanks. Another question came in asking about trends in diet. And I know that we've been writing about a lot of this at Agri-Pulse in terms of what changes are we seeing as a result of the Make America Healthy Again movement. And the questioner wants to know not so much about that, but are we seeing more of a trend toward a flexitarian diet where it's not necessarily a move to straight vegetarian, but perhaps protein with a mix of a vegetarian? John, do you have any insights on what kind of trends we're seeing that might be driving future use?
Yeah, I can take a shot. I would say flexitarian was 2 years ago at this point in time. What we are seeing is basically just for your Ozempic crowd, the injection systems, we're seeing a decline of the amount of food people are eating. That's currently running about 13%. So GLP-1 dieting has had a major impact on food. Secondarily, we're just now starting to see the impact that could be created through Make America Healthy Again, as you referenced. But I do believe that ultra-processed foods is probably in the crosshairs next. And soy being such a wide use across so many different products, I do believe that we will maybe see some contraction in the overall food opportunity moving forward. But in the case of soy, that will be picked up by the biofuels segment domestically. So, everything will still be soy advancing at least a rate of 12 to 15%.
Well, that does bring up another question that surfaced. We were talking so much a couple of years ago about the potential for biodiesel and renewable diesel, and of course we had some tax credits that were still maintained, the 45Z, but not at such a robust level in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that passed earlier this year. I know that you folks aren't involved in policy, but just from a demand standpoint, Philip, maybe start with you. How are you thinking about the potential for still biodiesel and renewable diesel? And if anybody else wants to jump in, let me know.
Oh, the potential's definitely there. I know that there are certain parts of the country where it's not even available. Yes, as you mentioned, government regulation, different things there, it enters in such big time. So yeah, the potential is definitely there. The sustainable portion is there. The renewable portion is definitely a part of the marketing feature as well. We've got the product. We just need to jump a few more hurdles, and I think we have the opportunity and the market can be there worldwide.
Thank you. And Brent, just one more question for you on the sustainability front. We had a questioner ask about, how do you define the sustainability given all the products that are used to protect your crop? I think sometimes people forget that you can only use things that are approved by federal agencies, right? So when you're making your selections, you're obviously with tight margins too, you're not looking to apply anything more than you don't have to in order to try to get the most production and yield. Can you just share a little bit about how you go about making choices to make sure that whatever you're applying in the field is also something that's going to be safe to use in a sustainable manner?
Yes. Well, and our Ph.D. individuals on here can speak more on this than what I can, but I will say there are several years and upon years of studies and research trials that are done before any of these products can ever go to market. And so whenever it's really hard to have a definition of what sustainability means. And to me, it means like I'm a 5th generation farmer and I'm raising the 6th generation here on my family farm with 3 boys. And if we weren't sustainable and if it wasn't for these products and these new traits and technologies and things like that, I don't think I'd be able to sit here today and be on this call, So I'm extremely proud of that. I'm extremely proud of these individuals that work on behalf of farmers to get us these safe products to use. And also our end users and the individuals that buy our products overseas will not buy these without that testing and that safety precautions that are in place.
Well, thank you. It looks like we're just about to wrap up here, and I'd like to thank each of you for taking time to share the story of U.S. soy today during our webinar and talk about our theme of building domestic demand for U.S. soy. And I'd also like to thank all the attendees who have joined us for this discussion. One of the things we pride ourselves in is having the chance to educate, not only through webinars like this, but also through our publication, Agri-Pulse. And so for those of you online that aren't currently subscribers, please scan the QR code or visit our website. I'd also like to share with you that we will have a recording of this webinar available on www.agri-pulse.com. Probably posted next Monday morning. And so if you're interested in reviewing it, or if you didn't have a chance to join for this hour, you can watch it again at that time. You'll also receive, for those of you who registered, an email link when that becomes available. So we'll be pushing something out to you because you registered. I'd also once again like to thank the United Soybean Board for making this opportunity possible. And we look forward to visiting with all of you in future webinars and interactions in the weeks and months ahead. Have a great day. Thanks again.